Hi guys and welcome back. So today I have something very special for you. We are going to travel back in time and we are looking at the most popular books of the last 100 years. Looking at the most popular book for each individual year up until 2024. So let's get straight into it and let's go. Okay, so Goodreads published this list here from 1925 to 2024, 100 years of popular books on Goodreads. So we are going to be looking at those. I'm going to check which ones I know, which ones I've heard about, if there's anything I want to add to my TBR. Yeah, you may also discover something new on here and something that might interest you. So let's get straight into it with the first year here. Okay, so the first one on here is 1925's Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I've never heard of this book. It must be a popular one. It says the novel that inspired the hours. It kind of looks like a historical fiction, I guess. Again, never heard of it, and it does not really spark interest for me right now. So I'm not gonna go on. Then we have the next one is 1926, which is an Agatha Christie. I do like her work. I've read a few of her books and I'm very much into crime recently. So this could be something for me. This is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. I like this cover art on here, although that's of course a newer one. But I'm gonna add this to my TBR. 27, Villa Cater, Death Comes for the Archbishop. Doesn't really spark any interest. I've never heard of it either. All Quiet on Western Front, All Quiet on the Western Front. So I guess that's the novel that inspired the Netflix short TV series. And I did very much like that. I'm into war stories and true stories, so I'm gonna add this one. This could be interesting to read. I was not aware that that Netflix short TV series was based on a book actually, so that's good to know. Then we are getting to the next row here. So 1933 is Passing by Nella Larsen. I've never heard of that. 34, we have William Faulkner, As I Lay Dying. So that's an absolute classic. I believe that one is part of my Rory Gilmore Girls Reading Challenge, which I have been pausing for a little bit now. But I'm going to add this one to my list here, to my one to read. The Waves, another Virginia Woolf. I don't know Virginia Woolf. Tell me something about her in the comments below. Is she somebody that I should be looking into? Brave New World, another classic that I want to get to at some point. I don't actually know what it is about. In my mind, I kind of feel like it's something similar to 1984. I don't know, but that's just what I'm thinking about when I see Brave New World. Next, we have, I guess, another classic by Vera Brittain, Testament of Youth. Looks like either a historic novel or a true story, I guess. Another war story, I guess. I'm not gonna add this for now. Then we have a Scott Fitzgerald novel, Tender is the Night. I'm of course a big fan of The Great Gatsby, and I don't think I've ever read any other Scott Fitzgerald book. So this I should get into that. I mean, it can't be the best book of 1938 for no reason. So let's add that to my list here. Then we have 1939. Gaudy Night by Dorothy L. Sayers, a Lord Peter Wimsey mystery. So I guess that's kind of a detective series. I would want to stop from the first one if I would go into that. So usually for me, I don't get into the middle of a series. I don't like that. I want to start from the very first book in a series. Next one, 1940, Murder in the Cathedral. And of course, these books now are, published in the Second World War. So I think many of them probably have to do with suffering and with war, I would assume. But let's get to next line here. 1941, For Eyes Were Watching God. For Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Sounds interesting. Maybe a little bit of poetism in there, not sure. Next one we have 1942 Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, maybe a French novel, I'm not sure. But there's so many books on here that sound interesting. I can't add all of them, but yeah, we'll just try to add a few of them that look very interesting to me. Also got my coffee here, by the way, because what is life without coffee? Uh, then we have 1943's The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Richard Wright, Native Son, 1944. 1945, The Library of Babel. So I have heard of this book, and I have heard like what the Library of Babel is about. At least the apparently there's like also a website of the images of the Library of Babel or something like that, which basically has an index of every image that is possible with the number of pixels and the colors that exist. So basically every single picture is in there, and as far as I understand it, the Library of Babel is that same idea with any type of work of writing, no matter if fiction or non-fiction. I believe that's what the Library of Babel is about, and I was interested in that book for a long time, so I'm gonna add this to my TBR. Problem is there's so many good books to read, but so little time. But we'll, just try to get as many to as many as possible. 1942, The Stranger. Then we have 1940. No, we are already at 1946 was that The Stranger. We have 1947, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I should be able to pronounce that better. I do speak French, but for some reason I can't pronounce that name. Saint-Exupéry. So The Little Prince is one of my absolute favorite stories. I love it so much, and I've read it in multiple languages. So that's the first one on here that I've read already. Next one is 1948, No Exit by Jean-Paul Sartre. Then we have 49, Tennessee Williams, The Glass Menagerie. 1950, The Member of the Wedding, Carson McCullers. So these book cover arts look very similar, 49 and 50, but it's a completely different offer. So I wonder what that is about. Maybe that was just the style at the time that was expected. We have Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl. So it says want to read. I have read this, but I am not quite sure if I ever finished it. But I have mostly read this book, and it's very powerful. So I should get back to it at some point. It's essentially also very amazing that she was able to write it at her age as she was. I believe she was in her early teens at the time that she wrote it. Heartbreaking story, of course. Next one, 52, I Captured the Castle by Dodgy Smith. There we go. George Orwell's 1984 is from 1953. I didn't know that. Great book. Loved it, read it. I think that's one of the classics that actually holds up, and it's not just a classic that is not that interesting to read, because I do think there's quite a lot of them, as I recently experienced with the Rory Gilmore Reading Challenge. Next is 1954's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I have heard of this book by C.S. Lewis, A Story for Children. Not that interested in it because I just recently read The Wizard of Oz. This feels a little bit similar, and it was an absolute pain for me to finish The Wizard of Oz in my mid-30s. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. So this one is probably on my TBR for many, many years. I should actually finally get to it at some point. Then we have The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, 1956. 1957's best book was Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Heard of it, interesting. Next one, 1958, we have The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. A book that needs no introduction. I absolutely love the whole trilogy, of course. Not a big fan of The Hobbit though, but absolutely love The Lord of the Rings. Next up, 1959, we have Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. So I have read about this book from the memoirs of Tehran, something like that. That book was about from a book club, a female book club set in Iranian Revolution in the 1970s, I believe, for when it was forbidden reading these kind of books, and they were talking and reading and discussing this book Lolita. Or I think it was actually in the name, so it was reading Lolita in Tehran or something like this. And it made me interested in the book. I wanted to read it for a long time. I'm not sure if I would like it too much though, because I do know the story a little bit, and it's not something that would usually interest me. But I feel like this book is so famous that I should have a look at it. I can still stop. But usually I hate starting books and then forfeiting them. Next up is 1960s James Baldwin, Giovanni's Room. I have heard of that, but I'm not gonna add this now. Jack Kerouac, On the Road. It's been on my TBR for a long time as well. Should get to it at some point. Then we have 1962's Things Fall Apart by, I'm not trying to pronounce that name. We have 1963's The Haunting of Hill House. That sounds kind of interesting. I do love a little horror story. It seems to be compared with Stephen King novels. Was Stephen King already writing at this time? That's amazing. And I'm not a big King fan, so I guess I better skip that one. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I have been wanting to read this book ever since To Set a Watchman, the succession to this book came out, but I haven't gotten to either one of them yet. Catch 22 by Joseph Heller. Is this where the phrase Catch 22 comes from? Question. Please drop a comment below. Then we have 1966, A Wrinkle in Time. I think this was the Disney adaptation a few years ago that failed miserably, right? So I think that's probably more young adult fiction, which I'm currently not too much into. Although I'm doing a rereading of the Hunger Games novels at the moment, but that's because I love that series. We have 1967's The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I've heard of that, but yeah. Also, the next one, 1968's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Obviously, very popular book. I've never read it. It's not popular in Europe, and I think it's a children's story, so I'm not gonna get into that. We have Dune. I've been wanting to start reading the series ever since the first movie came out. I do want to get to it at some point, but it's a little bit daunting with all the books that they have. And I did start like the first chapter, and it's very descriptive. It's very slow. It's a lot of world building in the beginning, so I'll see when I'll be able to get to that. Then we have 1970s White Sargasso Sea. Okay, doesn't ring a bell. 1971, 100 Years of Solitude. I think that's just a very, very sad book. I don't think I want to get into that mood at the moment. 1972, A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. Is that a French book again? Earthsea, now an original miniseries event from Sci-Fi Channel. This is sci-fi book, the first book of Earthsea, the Earthsea saga. Let me know in the comments below. Is this something worth getting into? That could be interesting. I'm gonna add this for now, because 1970 is when like things started to get popular for sci-fi books and series, right? Then we have 1973's I Know Why the Caged Birds Sing. 1974's The Bluest Eye. Then we have The Exorcist, The Stepford Wives. So none of those really spark any interest at the moment. 1977's The Princess Bride by William Goldman. Never heard of that. James Baldwin's What If Beale Street Could Talk. Okay. The next one I've wanted to read since also the series came out, and many of my friends mentioned that the book is absolutely amazing to read. Shogun from 1979. I was not aware that it's that old of a book, but I do want to read the book before I watch the series, so that's why it's on my TBR here. Um, Roots by Alex Healy or Haley, 1980. Then we have Stephen King's The Shining, 1981. So, if I'm ever gonna read another Stephen King book, I am going to be very careful in which I'm going to pick. The Shining could be one of them, but I think a few others were also mentioned. So I'll see. 82, The West Wing game. Probably something with politics, I would assume. West Wing, White House. Then we have one of my biggest disappointment in the sci-fi world, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy from 1983. So this book, to me, was just a horrible experience to read. I understand that this book doesn't take itself very seriously. There's a lot of humor that's supposed to go with it, but I don't know. It felt incohesive, and I wanted to stop. Actually, I had to force myself to finish that book. The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. Um, I heard of the book, of course. I don't know what it's about. From the cover art, it looks like it may be set in like the little ancient times, and maybe has something to do with state and church. But we'll see if I ever get to that. 1985's Chronicle of a Death Foretold. Okay. And then we have The House of the Spirits, which I am currently reading. So I'm currently reading The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende from 1986. It's part of my Rory Gilmore Girls reading challenge. I have been having a hard time finishing this book. It's not that it's not that interesting, but it's just moving very slow, and it's not really up my alley. But I'm gonna have to finish it soon because I keep starting new books and not finishing this book. I should just get through it. Terry Pratchett, The Color of Magic from '87. Terry Pratchett, I did try to read one of his books at some point with like the Discworld series, I think, and I couldn't really get into it. I think it's just the way his mind works doesn't really work for me, or I can't really understand what he's writing about, to be honest. 1989's The House on Mango Street sounds interesting. Then we have The Handmaid's Tale, 1989. Oh, that's actually from my birth year, so I should add that. I haven't seen the series either, or is it a movie? I don't know, but I do know there's more books in the series, and I kind of know what the books are about. Then we have Mouse, that looks like something about Hitler. Very interesting. Never heard of that. 1989's Beloved by Toni Morrison. Never heard of that book either. Then we have The Satanic Verses from Salman Rushdie, 1992, also new to me. The Choilock Club, 1993. V for Vendetta. That was a book. I thought that was just a movie. I absolutely love that movie, so I'm gonna add that to my TBR. That could, I can see how that would be even more interesting as a book, to be honest. Then we have Possession, not Passion, Possession. Okay. The Secret History by Donald Tratt. Parable of the Sower, Octavia E. Butler, 1997. What is the next one? It doesn't even say anything. The Memory Police. The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. That could be interesting. I'm recently very much into Japanese books. Wicked again. I thought that was just a musical, 1999. I didn't realize that was a book originally, because that is like set in the Wizard of Oz universe, right? And I did see the musical many years ago with my father in San Francisco. A Game of Thrones. So I did finish the first book. It's not ticked off on here. And I think I also read the second and the third book maybe, or stopped in the middle of the third because it just got kind of difficult to read. And I prefer the series, to be honest, rather than the books. 2001, John Krakauer's Into Thin Air. John Krakauer was like a famous climber, right? Um, then we have Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. So this could be interesting. I have read at least one other Bill Bryson book, and I absolutely enjoy his witty writing style. So I'm gonna add this one on here. All About Love by Bell Hooks. No, never heard of that. Michael Chabon's what is that? The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Okay, never heard of that. We have Atonement. I think also the book got the movie got very popular a few years ago. I have neither read the book nor seen the movie, and doesn't really interest me. Then we have Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. Okay. Then we have the Kite Runner 2007. I wanted to read that for a long time as well because I do want to watch the movie at some point because I believe the movie was directed by a Swiss director. I would love to watch that work. Cloud Atlas, it's been on there for a long time as well. I think that story will be so fascinating. I think it like jumps back and forth in time and different universes and stuff like that. Also supposed to be a great movie. Then we have a Kazuo Ishiguro novel, Never Let Me Go. I think I've read some of his other works and I quite liked them. Unless Clara and the Sun is also one of his works, I'm not quite sure because that book was horrible. Then we have The Road by Cormac McCarthy, 2010. Doesn't ring a bell. In the Woods. And then we have the first Hunger Games, 2012. I thought that would be older, 2012 only. Okay. So I've read the book, of course. I love it. The first one especially. Cutting for Stone, 2013 by Abraham Verghese. Never heard of it. 2014, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. I guess that's either historic fiction or based on a true story. From the picture up there, I would assume it's based on a true story, probably during wartime again, I would assume. Next up, we have one of my absolute favorite books, and I've read that quite long before the movie came out. So, The Martian by Andy Weir is one of my favorite books of all time, and it's also one of my favorite audiobooks of all time. This is an absolute amazing audiobook that you need to listen to. We have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, 2016. I have seen that movie, I've not read the book. Crazy Rich Asians, 2017. Never really been interested in either the book or the movie. Station 11. So I did want to read that for some time. I've heard of that. I can't remember what it is about though. I'm gonna add it and look it up later on. The fifth season. N.K. Jemisin, okay. Then we have 2020's The Underground Railroad, Colson Whitehead. That could be interesting. So what is this about? Let me quickly look into this. Cora is a slave on a cotton plantation in Georgia. Life is hell for all slaves, but especially bad for Cora. Nope, not usually the topic that I enjoy reading, so let's forget about that. Pachinko, it's been on my to be read since 2021, I guess. I do want to get to it at some point. Circe by Madeline Miller, 2022. I absolutely love this book. So this is amazing, this story. And I do believe I have a full review of Circe somewhere on the channel. Next up, 2023, we have On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous, Ocean Vuong. I love that title. That sounds interesting, but probably not for me right now. Then we have The Vanishing Half from last year by Britt Bennett, 2024, a novel. So what would that be about? Let's see, because that's the last book here. The Wine's twin sisters will always be identical, but after growing up together in a small southern black community and running away at the age of 16, it's not just the shape of their daily lives that is different as adults, it's everything. Their families, their communities, their racial identities. Don't particularly enjoy reading these kind of stories because that's gonna be a mood bummer story. Yeah. Yeah, but guys, these are 100 years of beloved books by Goodreads. There's some on there that I found that could be interesting for me to read. So let's see when I get into that. Did you find anything in there that's interesting to you guys, or is there something in there that you think, oh, Ollie, you should really look into that? I believe you would like it. So please drop a comment below and let me know about it. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.